I was supposed to attend a crucial business meeting with Daniel, a younger department manager, that day after returning from my abroad assignment for the first time in years. However, Daniel's words were genuinely startling. This older person is new to us. To be honest, he is utterly worthless. Daniel presented me to our client's division manager, Stephen, in this way. Daniel had always been the kind of person who denigrated others, a truly terrible individual. His rudeness wasn't the first time. However, was it really necessary for him to behave that way in front of Stephen? I was enraged. However, Daniel would shudder and pass out the moment he realized who I truly was. I'm 35 years old, and my name is Michael. I'm still unmarried and relish the independence that comes with being single. It's not that I don't have feelings for ladies. I just put my all into my career and came to this conclusion. Perhaps I've never had a girlfriend because I'm a quiet person. I've never had good interpersonal communication skills. As a result, I didn't have many childhood pals. I was frequently made fun of by the neighborhood kids for my personality. My identical brother, Grant, would always defend me in those situations. Hey, give Michael some space. That's how Grant always defended me. I would still have my best ally even if I had no pals. Knowing that alone gave me the willpower to continue. Grant, in contrast to me, was gregarious and had many acquaintances. People have always stated that our personalities couldn't be more different, despite the fact that we are identical twins and appear absolutely alike. Since I've always had trouble with everything I've tried, I frequently felt jealous of Grant's abilities. I told him once, "You've got it easy. You have a ton of friends and are skilled at everything. Life will always go your way. I wager. I simply have no hope in contrast." Grant merely chuckled. "What are you discussing? I may be skilled with my hands, but I'm a lousy student. The intelligent one is you. You need to have greater self-confidence." For the first time, I understood that even Grant, who was always happy, had his own problems. Ever since, we have done everything together. We even entered the workforce together after graduating from college. Even though we ended up working for different companies, we consistently discussed our desire to collaborate in the future. I was hired by a business that sells auto parts. I majored in engineering in college, since I've always been interested in it. Thus, this business was a wonderful fit for me. I was put in charge of the development division. Through constant trial and error, I worked on developing and fabricating parts every day. Our department had a laid-back, pleasant vibe, and I was surrounded by nice coworkers and a manager who genuinely cared about his staff. I was able to perform my duties with assurance and comfort because of the folks I worked with. This continued for a few years until my boss summoned me into his office one day and gave me a piece of paper. A notice of personnel reassignment was sent out. I was astounded when I saw it. It stated that I will be working in a plant abroad. My boss put a hand on my shoulder as I stood there stunned. "The foreign facility will greatly benefit from your skills. I sincerely hope you'll take the job." Well, overseas uncertain overcame me, but I also wanted to see if my abilities would translate to another country. I therefore made a decision to consult Grant. If he were in my position, I wanted to know what he would do. I was surprised by what he said, "around the world." That sounds fantastic. I wouldn't think twice if it were me. This is your opportunity to develop. He was correct. Despite my nervousness, I understood that working overseas would help me in the future. I therefore agreed to the overseas assignment. Grant took the day off work to see me go on the day I was leaving. "Michael, you've got this." "Thanks, man." Grant encouraged me as I got on the plane and departed for another nation. It was a 3-year assignment. I made a self-promise to give it my all during that period. I had trouble with the language at first. What the local workers at the factory were saying was incomprehensible to me. Within a few months, I was able to speak with them when I pushed myself into my studies. Working at the plant became very pleasurable after that. 3 years had become 5 before I realized it. I felt I could work there indefinitely since I truly liked it. However, headquarters informed me that I would have to return to Japan in the 6th year. I had no choice but to quit the factory. Even though it was difficult to say goodbye to the local employees, it was a directive from above. I was resolved to put all I had learned overseas into practice when I returned to Japan. Japan felt rather quiet in comparison to other countries. I made the decision to greet everyone at headquarters first. I experienced a surge of nostalgia when I entered the headquarters building and saw that everything was just as it had been. However, I was taken aback when I entered the components development division. 6 years later, nothing in the office was the same. Everything was entirely different. Only a few faces were recognized, and the department manager was unique as well. A man approached me as I stood there in awe of how much had changed in just 6 years. "You're Michael, returning from a foreign country. This department's manager is me, Daniel." When I saw Daniel's face, I was unable to conceal my surprise. I could surely know that face. Daniel also stared at me as I stood there dumbfounded. Then, grinning, he scoffed and uttered, "Oh, it's you. You're the useless twin, right?" I fell silent at his words. The truth was Daniel used to live near me when I was younger, and I had painful memories I couldn't forget. Back then, I was shy and always clung to Grant. And Daniel, who was 3 years younger than us, would constantly tease me. "You two look exactly the same. It's creepy. Stop hanging out together just because you have the same face." "Shut up. Get out of here." Grant would always step in and chase Daniel off. But one day, something happened. While I was walking alone without Grant, I ran into Daniel. "Oh no, I have to get out of here." As that thought flashed through my mind, I lowered my head and tried to hurry away, but my feet got tangled, and I ended up falling hard to the ground. Why is my timing always so terrible? As I cursed myself and sat there frozen in embarrassment, Daniel walked over with a smug grin. "Wow, you just tripped over right here. What is this? Some kind of comedy skit? You really are hopeless." To hear something like that from Daniel, who was 3 years younger than me, I felt pathetic, completely miserable. I never wanted to feel that way again. So, from that day on, I did everything I could to avoid crossing paths with Daniel. By the time I started middle school, Daniel had moved away to attend a prestigious combined junior and senior high school, so I no longer saw him. But the bitter memory never left me. And now, to be reunited with Daniel at work, it was a shock I never saw coming. "My name is Michael, and yes, I'm the older twin. I look forward to working with you." I greeted him calmly, trying to stay composed, but Daniel just laughed. "Can you believe it? I ended up becoming manager before you, even though I'm younger. Well, I did graduate from a top school, and I'm way better at the job than you are, so it was bound to happen. Just make sure you're a good little subordinate and do what I say." With that, Daniel walked back to his desk. Unbelievable. I never imagined I'd have to work under someone like Daniel. But work is work. I'd prove him wrong through my performance. I made up my mind. As I sat at my desk, a woman named Emily, who sat next to me, spoke up. She hadn't been there 6 years ago, so she must have joined while I was away. Emily was a beautiful woman with strikingly large eyes. "Michael, that's such a strong name." She spoke with a warm smile, maybe trying to ease my tension. "Thank you. I just hope I can live up to it and protect someone someday." I smiled back. It was a simple exchange, but thanks to Emily's kind words, my nerves started to settle. But the moment didn't last. Soon, Daniel's voice boomed across the room. He clearly didn't like seeing Emily and me chatting. "What's so funny over there? You're terrible at your job, so put that energy into working harder. Don't drag Emily down with you." He labeled me as incompetent without ever having worked with me. Our coworkers looked on, stunned. Why was he saying such things to me? I couldn't understand, but I didn't have the courage to argue back. Swallowing my pride, I quietly began working. Then I saw something that made my eyes widen. I glanced over at Daniel and saw that his eyes were shut. He was clearly dozing off. I was so shocked that I instinctively looked over at Emily. She looked exasperated. Then, in a quiet voice, she said, "It's surprising, isn't it? But this happens all the time. You'll get used to it eventually." I had never seen a supervisor sleep on the job before. A manager should lead by example. How could someone in his position act like this? I was stunned, but whether Daniel was sleeping or not had nothing to do with me. I went back to my work. Eventually, Daniel woke up yawned, and called my name. Now what? I walked over to his desk, puzzled, only to hear something unbelievable. Hey, you're not busy, right? Uh, that's all he had to say. After calling me over, I felt my irritation rise. Give me coffee. Daniel had just ordered me to go buy coffee. As I stood there in disbelief, he raised his voice even more. Why are you just standing there? I want coffee. Go get it now. Was that cup of coffee really more important than the work he was interrupting? I couldn't understand it, but if I said anything, it would just make things worse. Reluctantly, I decided to go get his coffee. Just as I was about to leave the office, I heard Daniel's voice from behind. Hey, I gave you a job to do since you look bored. Be grateful. What on earth is he talking about? My coworkers looked just as appalled as I felt. I could only sigh. When I returned with the coffee, Daniel had an irritatingly smug grin on his face. What is this guy's problem? With that thought, I handed the coffee to Daniel. Then he said something that completely caught me off guard. Too bad. This isn't the kind of coffee I like. What? If he had a specific preference, why didn't he go get it himself? He had no right to act like this after sending someone else. I was shaking with anger. But Daniel continued, completely unfazed. Well, go buy another one. You really don't have any common sense, do you? And then he tossed the coffee I had just bought into the trash. This was flat out harassment. The office fell silent, and my coworkers looked at me with pity. If I raised my voice now, it would just give Daniel what he wanted. Telling myself this was just part of the job, I went to buy another coffee. I kept saying to myself, just get through this, and things will get better. But Daniel's behavior only got worse. How long was this going to go on? Every day, those thoughts weighed on me as I went to work, constantly on edge around Daniel. And this day was no different. I kept wondering, what's he going to say to me today? That's when Emily approached me. Daniel just called. He said he has plans and won't be coming in today. He also said to give all his work to you. What? You mean I have to do everything he was supposed to do today? I couldn't help but raise my voice. Emily looked genuinely sorry. Actually, Daniel always dumps his work on others whenever he decides to skip out. It's ridiculous. I was stunned. I didn't know why he was off. But for a department manager to dump all his responsibilities on someone else, it was absolutely unacceptable. I was absolutely furious. But if I was told to do it, I had no choice. I gave up my break time and finished all of Daniel's work. But the next day, when I arrived at the office, Daniel was handing out cookies to everyone. I couldn't help but wonder what got into him. Then he said something that left me speechless. Yesterday, I went on a hot spring trip with my girlfriend. Those cookies are good, right? I was at a loss for words. So, while I was stuck doing his work, he was off relaxing in a hot spring. And after everything I did, he didn't even thank me. I started to seriously question his character. I knew better than to expect anything from someone like him, but if we had to work together, I just wished he would act responsibly. I couldn't help but feel that way. As the days of Daniel doing whatever he pleased continued, I began to feel mentally exhausted. That's when Grant invited me out for drinks. It was rare for busy Grant to invite me, so I gladly accepted. We made plans to meet up for the first time in a while. We met at a bar, and he was already there when I arrived. When he saw me, he looked shocked. Michael, you look completely worn out. Are you okay? His words made me realize just how tired I actually was. He looked at me with real concern. Is it because of work after coming back from your overseas assignment? I couldn't lie to Grant. So, I told him everything about Daniel. He looked genuinely surprised. I can't believe that kind of coincidence. He's still looking down on you. That's unforgivable. Grant was clearly upset. And no wonder. He never got along with Daniel. The reason was simple. Daniel had always treated me unfairly. He acts like he's better than everyone just because he went to a prestigious university. I said. Grant burst out laughing. Well, that won't last long. A guy like that is bound to crash and burn without us even doing anything. Let's just sit back and watch. He said that as he sipped his drink. It had been a long time since I'd enjoyed a meal so much. Spending time with Grant, the one person who truly understood me, meant the world. We said we'd go for drinks again sometime and parted ways. Would Daniel really end up self destructing like Grant said? Still, Grant was always right. So I decided to wait and see, just like he suggested. And then the very next day, it happened. Daniel came in late because he overslept. His complete lack of motivation left me speechless. Yawning, he handed me some documents and told me to organize them. We got a meeting with Y Corporation coming up. For some reason, Mr. Irving wants me to bring you along. I have no idea why he'd want someone as useless as you there, but an order is an order. So you better prep those materials before then. With that, he returned to his desk. I immediately began reviewing the documents. They contained detailed information about Y Corporation. Once Daniel was out of earshot, Emily turned to me. Y Corporation? That's huge. They're one of our most important clients, right? She looked excited. Y Corporation is a major automaker that produces cutting-edge vehicles and has been doing business with our company for 13 years. We started supplying them from the very beginning. At first, they were just a small startup, but after releasing a line of advanced cars, they skyrocketed to the top of the industry. Thanks to that, they now sell all over the world and are our primary client. Our company's recent growth is largely thanks to Y Corporation. They're launching a new car model, right? This must be the meeting about supplying parts for it. Emily's eyes sparkled. This deal was rumored to be worth millions of dollars. It could make or break our company's future. Exactly. We have to make sure this meeting is a success. Saying that, I got to work compiling the materials. And then the big day arrived. As soon as I got to the office, I reviewed the presentation materials again. By this point, I had memorized everything about the meeting. In business meetings, clients always tend to ask unexpected questions. This time, I wanted to be fully prepared so I could handle whatever they threw at me. Meanwhile, Daniel looked half asleep, yawning at his desk. Would today's meeting really go smoothly? I couldn't shake the feeling of unease. At the time, I had no idea that my fears would soon be realized. Daniel and I arrived at Y Corporation's headquarters. They've been our clients since the very beginning. This is going to be a breeze. You just sit there and listen to my presentation. Daniel looked completely relaxed. Meanwhile, I was so nervous, my legs were shaking. He must have been feeling overly confident about this meeting. We waited in the reception room for the representative to arrive. Y Corporation was truly impressive. Their building was several times larger than ours and impeccably maintained. No doubt it was thanks to Mr. Henderson's leadership that the company had come so far in just 13 years. As I was thinking about that, Stephen, the department head from Y Corporation, walked into the room. Daniel immediately handed him his business card and began introducing me. But what he said next was unbelievable. We've got this new older guy. Honestly, he's completely useless. I never thought he'd belittle me in front of Stephen. Of all places, did he really have to act like that in front of a major client? Stephen's face twisted in discomfort at Daniel's comment. I was furious, but I forced myself to focus on the meeting. Then Daniel did something shocking. He started reading from the materials I had prepared. I was speechless. He hadn't prepared anything for the presentation. He had planned all along to just read what I put together. Our company's parts are durable and hard to break. He was just reading straight off the page. This was no presentation. I sat in stunned silence. Sure enough, Stephen looked puzzled. Could you explain exactly how they're durable? Could you give a more specific example? Stephen was absolutely right. Daniel's presentation lacked any substance. Of course it did. I had compiled the materials for internal reference, not for a presentation. And yet, Daniel was simply reading the materials word for word. If he had any real understanding of our company's products, he could have answered Stephen's question easily. But he couldn't. He was visibly shaken. I was speechless. Daniel didn't just know nothing about Y Corporation's products. He didn't even know our own. At this rate, the meeting was bound to fail. And if that happened, the consequences would be disastrous. I had no choice. I decided to give the presentation myself. I handed my business card to Stephen. Perhaps realizing how bad things were, Daniel said nothing to stop me. Excuse me for interrupting, but I'll be giving the presentation from here on. With that, I began presenting without looking at any notes. But instead of listening, Stephen was staring at my business card. Oh no, he's figured it out. As that thought crossed my mind, Stephen began staring intently at my face. Daniel watched, clearly puzzled. Then finally, Stephen spoke. Wait, are you by any chance the twin brother of Mr. Henderson? What? Stephen stared at me with wide eyes. Daniel, thinking Stephen had made a mistake, burst out laughing. Come on, Stephen. That's impossible. His twin was always an idiot. There's no way he could have become a president. But Stephen didn't laugh. He kept looking at me closely, tilting his head. Just then, the door to the meeting room burst open. Stephen, Michael's my twin brother. See the resemblance? The room fell completely silent. Daniel was so stunned, he almost fell off the sofa. They really do look identical. I noticed it when I saw his last name matched Mr. Henderson's on his business card. Stephen broke into a bright smile. No way. That screw-up Grant is the president of Y Corporation? That's got to be a mistake. Daniel raised his voice, clearly unable to accept what he was hearing, but his voice trembled. Then Stephen raised his voice in anger. How dare you say something so rude? Grant is without question the president who built this company from the ground up. Grant glared at Daniel. Stephen, this guy has always been disrespectful. There's no point in reasoning with him. Hearing Grant's words, Daniel stood frozen in place, his face completely pale. No way. Grant is the president. The always arrogant Daniel now shook like a frightened puppy. Yes, it was true. My twin brother Grant was the president of Y Corporation. He had loved cars since he was a kid and used to talk about building his dream car one day. That's why he enrolled in a university with a strong engineering program. After graduation, he founded Y Corporation. He struggled with funding at first, but through sheer persistence and hard work, he built the company into what it is today. Once the company was stable, Grant offered me a job, hoping we could work together. But at the time, I was about to go on an overseas assignment. So I declined. Mr. Irving, my current boss, is the only one in my company who knows that I'm Grant's twin brother. That's probably why he insisted I attend this meeting. Daniel now looked at me, clearly frustrated. It's not fair. I worked so hard to graduate from a top university, and he becomes a president without even doing that. Stephen's expression darkened. What are you talking about? I don't know where he went to school, but for your information, Mr. Henderson graduated from a far more prestigious university than you. What? A top university? Yes, he's a graduate of K University. Daniel's eyes widened in shock. His own alma mater ranked lower than K University. He never imagined Grant had graduated from Japan's most prestigious national university. We both graduated from K University. Daniel turned pale as he looked at the two of us. What? You too, Michael? You're a K University graduate? You never said anything about that. He was clearly shaken. Yes, Grant and I had both graduated from the toughest university in Japan. We were determined to study engineering seriously, so we worked hard and got it on our first try. Grant raised his voice as he watched Daniel flailing in a panic. He had finally reached his limit with Daniel, who had looked down on us every step of the way. What difference does it make what university someone graduated from? That has nothing to do with you. What matters isn't the name of the school, it's whether you can apply what you learned to your job. He was absolutely right. A prestigious degree means nothing if you can't use your knowledge effectively in the workplace. Then Stephen, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke. It seems Daniel hasn't applied anything he learned at university. Didn't they teach you that cutting corners at work is unacceptable? Your presentation today was the worst I've ever seen. Right on the heels of Stephen's words, Grant began to speak as well. I overheard a bit from outside. And honestly, it wasn't even a presentation. Are you underestimating my company? Daniel stood in silence, turning toward me as if begging me to say something to defend him. Why should I have to say anything for Daniel's sake? I was done cleaning up his messes. And then Grant delivered a shocking statement. I only want to work with companies that approach business sincerely. The only reason I agreed to work with your company was because Michael was there. But I no longer have a reason to continue this relationship. As of today, we're terminating our contract. I refuse to work with someone as dishonest and irresponsible as you. What? But we've had such a long relationship. Don't end it like this. Besides, if the contract is terminated, Michael will be in trouble too. Daniel shamelessly tried to use my name to save himself. He probably thought invoking his connection to the president's brother would help, but that was naive. No need to worry, Daniel. Huh, I'm quitting this company. Daniel stared at me in disbelief. Grant looked delighted as he spoke. Michael will be joining my company next month. I plan to have him work as director of sales. That means he'll outrank you. Although, to be honest, I'm not even sure your company will still exist by then. Daniel's knees buckled, and he collapsed on the spot. It was true. I had already decided to leave my current company. I had always dreamed of working with Grant, but never knew when it might happen. After returning from my overseas assignment, I had felt satisfied at my current job. Working on essential parts for vehicle production was deeply fulfilling. I thought maybe staying where I was, continuing in my current role, was the right path. But then Daniel came into the picture, and everything changed. I realized I couldn't work any longer under a self-centered, abusive boss. That was the turning point. And the final straw, the incident with the coffee, that incident was exactly what I needed. It opened my eyes. I wasn't working just to be bossed around by Daniel. I didn't want to stay at a company where someone like him could be in charge. So I told Grant how I felt and decided to join Y Corporation. I'll inform your company that the negotiation ended in failure. Now, please leave, Stephen said firmly, dismissing Daniel, who was now completely deflated. Daniel slunk out of the building, head down. What happened next was astonishing. Daniel was officially demoted. The failed negotiation exposed his long-standing laziness and negligence at work. His unacceptable treatment of subordinates also came to light. To make matters worse, it was discovered he had been faking attendance records during frequent absences. He had done whatever he pleased. Daniel begged Mr. Irving in tears, but there was no way such behavior could be forgiven. He was reassigned to a remote factory, but with his oversized ego, he couldn't bear the humiliation and quietly resigned instead. Or so I heard through the grapevine. A truly pathetic ending. It was the result of believing a fancy diploma was all he needed and putting no real effort into his career. Once Grant heard Daniel had resigned, he reopened business with our former company. He probably couldn't bring himself to permanently cut ties with a partner that had supported him since the beginning. That's just like Grant, kind and forgiving. As for me, I got reemployed at Grant's company as the head of the sales department. My dream of working alongside him finally came true, and I'm enjoying every day. Looking back, it's strange to think I never would have taken this path if I hadn't run into Daniel. And now I'm officially dating Emily. I pursued Emily with everything I had. She was kind and beautiful, and eventually, we officially became a couple. Life is something we shape with our own hands. I don't know what the future holds, but I'm determined to keep building a life I can be proud of.